G'day everyone, Paul here from Hopstar Computing Solutions, and welcome to a video all about the start of my journey to discovering what are the alternatives to Microsoft Office. As you may know, Microsoft Office is the industry standard when it comes to software used for things like word processing, creating presentations, and of course one of my personal favorites, Microsoft Excel. However, there is a bit of a problem. If we go to the Microsoft site, and also Microsoft Office is now called Microsoft 365, just to increase my confusion, we can see that if you want your own personal copy of Microsoft 365, aka Microsoft Office, it is $109 per year. So that's a subscription-based service. You do get Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Windows Defender, which is confusing because I thought, or Microsoft Defender, I thought that was included as part of Windows, so question mark there. Their OneDrive service, which is for online file storage, Outlook, Microsoft Editor, Clipchamp, which I have no idea what that is, and OneNote, which I must say the one product I probably am enjoying using is OneNote. You can get a family version, which is more expensive, but for up to 6 people. And there is also a little bit hard to work out because I swear their pricing scheme and stuff is designed to make me lose my mind. You can also buy an outright copy, student version, for $219, one-time purchase. But my opinion of that is, in 3 or 4 years' time, when that's no longer supported, we have to then go and buy another copy. I personally think that for most computer users, it's a bit too much to be paying. The next option on my personal list is one called WPS, which stands for Writer, Presenter and Spreadsheets. It is, in my opinion, a very good alternative to the Microsoft 365 suite of applications. Their version of Word, which is Writer, does everything that I personally need. Their version of Presentation, which is their version of PowerPoint, does a lot less than the Microsoft PowerPoint does. However, if you don't need too many fancy animations and transitions, you should be just fine. Their spreadsheets seem to have almost everything that I need. It doesn't seem to do things like macros as well, and I'm not actually sure if you can actually enable the VBA for programming, but that's once again a much higher level thing. One of the things that I like about WPS is that it does handle PDFs quite well. However, that's mostly in the Pro version, and we'll come back to the pricing of that in just a moment. One of the other things that I like about WPS is you can actually have tabs open the same way as you would in your browser and have different types of files open within the same window without having to switch between programs. So that's definitely a tick in the Pro column for this piece of software. If we do go over to the pricing, we will see that the standard version is completely free, and although Microsoft does technically have a free version of their products, it is, I believe, only accessed through a web browser, and you do have to sign up for a Microsoft account. Now, I personally use the Pro version of WPS because I do like to have the PDF editing features, and it does some very good stuff for formatting files, for converting them between one type and another. As it suggests here, the Pro version has no advertising, which would lead you towards believing that the free version does have some advertising in it. But that's a business model which is understandable. It's a bit like when you watch free-to-air TV and you have to watch the ads there. Although I do use the cloud storage from WPS for a few things, it's definitely not an essential thing for me. One final option which I'm now starting to investigate is LibreOffice. Now LibreOffice is interesting because there is no paid version. There is no Pro version, there is no Plus version, there is no yearly subscription or anything like that. You can opt to donate, either with money or with your time. If you perhaps speak another language and you want to work on making documentation in different languages, they'd be very happy to work with you and look into doing that. So it's a very different kind of business model. This software and as well as WPS are available on Apple, Mac and Linux, Linux being an alternative operating system to Windows. And I believe that Microsoft 365, unless you're using it in your browser, is not actually compatible with Linux systems, although there is a version for Apple Macintosh. So So my list of requirements for each of the main programs are for Microsoft Word as a replacement. It needs to be able to do different layouts, different heading styles, because I use those quite a bit to be able to make table of contents. It needs to have at least half decent picture manipulation, because a lot of my documentation writing requires me to move pictures around and have it look good with text. In Excel, obviously it needs to be able to do your basic formulas and functions, and as a bonus, can it do VBA and macros? Once again, VBA is a bit more advanced programming language kind of stuff for Excel. For PowerPoint, as I've noted in WPS, it does not have the best transitions and animations, so I'm going to be very interested when I try LibreOffice to see how theirs look. One program in the Microsoft Office suite that I am quite fond of is Microsoft Publisher, and I use that for making a lot of training materials, whether it's trifold brochures or little booklets. So I'm going to have to make sure that if I am moving away from Microsoft Office, that I'm able to do the same kind of things that I can already do. As I mentioned before, I also need to do stuff with PDFs. I need to be able to export the PDFs efficiently, and as a big preference, being able to edit PDFs will also be very useful for me. I do believe that LibreOffice does have some of these PDF features, but I've not tested them out yet. So I'm going to be very interested to see how that goes. So on screen at the moment, we should be able to see a bit of a comparison between these three products. I should also mention that there are many other options out there. There are some people who get very good at using Google Docs, for example, which have their own sort of documents, spreadsheets and presentations. And some people are able to run, for example, an entire small business through Google Docs without having to spend any money. They're completely free. However, they do have paid services for upgrading and doing more file storage and some more advanced things as well. So I'm going to be trying out LibreOffice and seeing if all these things will line up for me. Downloading either of these two newer programs is relatively easy. From the WPS site, I've just gone over to the pricing, but even just from the home site, you can start a free download and then just download and install the file. I've already downloaded the file for LibreOffice. When you run the installation, it's relatively straightforward. I always recommend that you read all of the screens here when you're installing. Make sure it's not installing anything that you're not aware of. I can vouch for this one. I have installed it before. As we'll see, there's nothing sort of sneaky going on here. You can choose to create a desktop shortcut, which I will do, and I don't think that I really need it to load the program. When I first load into Windows, I'll just run it when I want to run it. Okay, now that it's finished installing, we do have a nice little icon on our desktop here. So when we go finish, we can double click on this one. And another thing I like about LibreOffice is the fact that when you open it, you get this kind of landing page here where you can then choose what you want to do next. And we have Writer, Calc, and Impressions, or Impress, which is their version of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. We also have Draw, which I'm not actually familiar with, and I'm not entirely sure what that's designed for. I do wonder if that might be a replacement for Publisher. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. However, there is another product called Scribus, which I will be checking out in a following video, which may be a replacement for Publisher. I also have maths formulas and base database. So some interesting things that I'm going to have to check out and do some more research on. There are a few things we need to do to make sure that LibreOffice is set up to work a lot more like how you would expect Microsoft Office to work. One of the first things we're going to do is we're going to go up to Tools and then Options, and underneath the Load and Save section here, under General, we want to check each one of these three things. So for text documents, we want to change it if it's currently set to ODF, which is sort of LibreOffice's version of a Word document. We actually want to set it to be the Microsoft 2007 365 .docx file format. For spreadsheets, we want to change it from ODS to be Excel 2007 to 365, the XLSX file format. And finally, we want to change the presentations to be the Microsoft Office PPTX file format. This means that anytime you save a file, it will automatically be accessible and readable by any Microsoft Office product, which is very cool. So I'm going to click OK to that. Let's open up Writer. Now by default, mine's looking a bit dark here. What we want to do usually is, rather than having the drop down menus, which is sort of the older style, we want to go to the View tab, under User Interface, we're going to set it to be tabbed. This will make it feel a lot more like Microsoft Office, which is what most people are used to. Let's do Apply to All. That'll apply to all the programs, and there we go. Okay, let's bring it on home with just a few more settings. I don't quite like the black background behind my sort of main working area here. So if we go back to the Tools tab and then Options, if you're using the drop-down menu system, you can go to Tools and Options from there. Apparently also Alt F12 will also do it, but I'm just going to do the one right here. And there's a whole lot of other settings here underneath the Libre heading. You can enter in your company details, your first name, last name, all your details if you want. Then it will actually save this information sort of in the back end onto each file, so it will know who created it. Quite a few things here which I don't think we need to use. You can change the themes of the icons. There are some different ones, so if I click Apply here, you'll see they change. I like the Libre one. Apply. I actually quite like those. Have a playthrough and see which ones you like. Most of these things you can leave the same. I do like the idea though that you can change the size of the icons on the toolbar, and I might try that for next time. The other one you might like to actually check into is personalization. You can change it to a different sort of color theme. It only really seems to change the top bit there, and I quite like that one. Application colors. This is something which I don't think you get with Microsoft Office products. You can come in and change all of the different bits and pieces. So, for example, I want the actual background, as I said, not to be black, but sort of maybe a dark grey. Click on Apply. So I think that's about it actually. Click OK on that, and we're good to go. We can start doing our typing. Beautiful. What happens if I do a typo? Excellent, as I would expected. What about if I put an extra space in here? Is it going to do the grammar corrections the same way the Word does? Yes, it does. Right click to change. Round. Actually, a lot more options in here actually than what Word does. It's interesting. And extra space. Remove it. Nice. Alright. Obviously, that doesn't get fixed because that's not a incorrect spelling, and neither is that. So it's not smart enough, you know, the same as Word isn't to actually correct wrong words, but we could look into Grammarly for that. But yeah, if you don't want the drop-down menus anymore, they're also really easy to move. Go to the View tab. Under View, we can say we want the menu bar, we can have a sidebar, all sorts of other things. Turn menu bar off, and it goes away. So now once again, it's much more like Microsoft Word with just the tabs. You have Home, Insert, Layout, References, Review, View, Extensions. Ooh, there's clever. Okay, be looking forward to coming back to that one. And then finally Tools. And in the File menu, rather than popping it out like the Backstage view in Word, it's just here. Make a new document, open existing, save our work. All looks pretty good to me. So that's all for now. Thanks everyone for watching. The next video in this series will be me actually having then played with Writer a bit more and seeing how it compares to Microsoft Word over this current school holidays here in Australia. I'm going to be updating all my manuals from last term to be ready for next term for all my training that I do in person. So I hope you're looking forward to seeing the next video in this series. We're going to do one for each of the programs, and I'm also going to explore the ones which I've not used before, like Draw and Database one, and what was the other one? Oh well, we'll see. If you found this video interesting or useful, please don't forget to give it a like and subscribe. And until next time, remember, never stop learning. See yous.